Well, welcome back to another week's analysis behind the news. At the end of this, I'm going to tell you how to get more work done, according to the New York Times. You'll find it very interesting. The annual address of, called the State of the Union by the President of the United States is coming up this week. And according to the New York Times, these are the things that Obama is going to talk about. In fact, in their headline in the article, it says, in annual address, Obama will lay out an agenda of new investments. The government's not really supposed to get involved in investments, but hey, that's a whole hour talking about that. But the thing that I wanted to point out was this for you, and that is he's going to call for broad new investments in education, infrastructure, clean energy, and manufacturing. Now, I hate to shock you with this comment. For those of you who are not familiar with the personage in Germany called Adolf Hitler, but that sounds remarkably like a speech that Adolf Hitler would have addressed. Now, don't get all in a tither now. Other than clean energy, those are the things that Hitler was always talking about. He was talking about education. Oh, they went and did a masterful job with education by the federal government of Germany, teaching all the little German kids to love the government and to love the Fuhrer. They went in and they supported the infrastructure. Anybody ever heard of the Autobahn and things like that? This is the same program that the stimulus program of Barack Obama. It's the same very steps that Hitler took to stimulate the economy. It made it look good at first, but then we know the realization of the fact that it didn't help anything relative to the economy. It put a few people to work, made nice highways, but the highways were built not for the purpose of helping the population or really stimulating the economy. The Autobahns were actually built so that they could move the German Wehrmacht on those highways with rapidity. If they were going to fight a two-front war, they wanted to make sure they could move their troops and equipment very quickly on land, not simply relying on the railroads. At any rate, another story. And then manufacturing. Oh yeah, the Germans got involved with giving contracts to manufacturers, so on and so forth, but they were a National Socialist government. They were partners, if you will, with these industries. Reluctant partners in many, many instances, but not always. And it's the same way in the United States. Sounds remarkably like the program of Adolf Hitler. You know, he was a racist, Adolf Hitler was. Obviously, hated Jews, hated Slavs, hated Gypsies, etc. But the economic program that he instituted took total control over Germany. People's lives were controlled by the government getting involved in all of this, getting involved in education, building the infrastructure and having control over it, getting involved in manufacturing and having control over it. Once your job is controlled, once your kids are controlled, once your whole infrastructure where you get your electricity, drive your car, if you're lucky to have one, in the case of Germany, that sort of thing. Once you get those things, then the other controls come with it. Because, oh, I'm going to lose my job. They're going to take my kids away from me. In fact, they're telling my kids to like the Fuhrer, to like the leader, and asking, does your kids have a gun at home? I mean, your parents have a gun at home, and that sort of thing. Those things are beginning to happen in this country. But not to worry, the California schools, for instance, have learned a lesson from the federal government. California schools make upgrades affordable by billing the next generation. See, they learned from the federal government that you can put it off and make your grandkids pay for all this. It's your gift to your grandkids. Make them pay for what you want. So they've developed a thing called capital appreciation bonds, and not a cent is owed until 2026. Wow, 13 years from now. Don't worry, taxpayer. You don't have to worry about it now. but you will have to worry about it when you're on Social Security, and your grandkids and your kids are going to have to pay for it. That's the kind of thing that's going on now. You know, education is really not that expensive. We've proven it here through our school that is an adjunct of the John Birch Society, Freedom Project Education, that education is not that expensive. Only government can make it that expensive. At any rate, we find too that the establishment is very worried about the Paulites. After Ron Paul, then what, according to the New York Times? Well, we find out that there's a certain segment and a growing alarm over the fact that more and more people are voting outside the mainstream of the Republicans and Democrats. This is disturbing to them. You know, one of the biggest times that there was a change in this country was in 1913 because of the 1912 election, 100 years ago. And as a result of that election, we got the income tax, the Federal Reserve, the direct election of senators instead of being appointed by the legislatures, all that sort of thing. The Socialist Party presidential candidate in 1912 got less than 1 million votes. The Libertarian candidate this time got more than 1 million votes, and in some cases was the difference between Republicans and being elected over Democrats in some of the local races as a result of this Libertarian vote. They're getting very disturbed over this because it's having a lot of influence on the Republican Party. Now, as you know, in the John Birch Society, we do not endorse parties. We have a lot of differences with the Democrats, the Republicans, the Libertarians, etc. And we won't need to go into those sorts of things. But the point is this, is that there's a growing movement in this country that are dissatisfied with the establishment parties for good reason. But you see, they never talk about the people that don't vote because they see no difference. They may not be aware of a third party that they can vote for, so they don't vote. Very simple. That is a growing segment of society too, by the way. People are just fed up with the idea that there's no difference. As George Wallace of Alabama said when he ran for office, there's not a dime's worth of difference. Because of inflation, maybe it's $1's worth of difference, I don't know. But at any rate, you get the point. At any rate, I'll finish this by telling you how to get more work done according to the New York Times. And here it is on the front page of the Sunday Review yesterday. Relax, you'll be more productive. And then you go and read that part, and then you get into here, and it shows a guy taking a nap. So according to the New York Times, if you go to sleep, take time to take a nap during the day and all of that, sleep on the job, you'll get more work done. Somehow it seems to fit with the philosophy, the political philosophy of the New York Times. To me, it doesn't make any sense. If I want to sleep, there's times to sleep. If I want to work, there's times to work. But hey, I'm old school. What do I know? Being awake, I get more work done. But hey, I'll take their advice. It's time for my nap.